I think before I apply the moss, I'm going to put a bit of sand around here. It'll give a nice layer, and then I don't have to have my moss covering every bit of the bonsai soil. I can have some areas that are just sand, which will look quite nice. So on Kubo Island, the areas of the island are different from the salt flats. They have more of a sandy appearance. So that's why I'm using the playground sand here. So it looks different from the salt flats. It's a little more realistic too. Next is applying the moss. So I've got some thin pieces here, relatively thin. So I'm going to start. I don't really want moss around the base of the tree. The moss is more to look like bushes rather than, a lush moss covering. So I think over here would look good by the rocks. And maybe, this is too big a patch of moss. Maybe it should be broken up into little tiny pieces to look like little bushes, but we'll try it like this, and then can always refine it if it doesn't look right. Now in here, I've got this section of the planting which I haven't put any sand or anything in there. I want this to look like land. I don't want it to be, a little tiny island surrounded by salt flats. So I've got to put the sand and that in this section also. So I will put a bit of bonsai soil in there and then put a covering of sand on top. And that'll get planted with moss so it looks like land. The bonsai soil is soaking up the water nicely that was in there. Okay. That just about uses up my soil. So next, I'll put some sand on top of here. And I'll have to water that in. Water it in so it kind of self-levels. Okay. A little watering now. Like that. Okay, I'm going to keep planting my moss. I definitely think that's too big. I think I need little tiny clumps. It just looks out of place. So let me get some of this moss out of here. Kind of spread it around a bit so it's little clumps here and there. So this is my first planting of the moss. Now, I will be stepping back and looking at it, and I may, change it quite a bit. I might take moss out of certain places, and I'm sure I'll be refining this landscape over many, many years. I'll do what I can today, but it may be something that sort of evolves into the future. Here is a look at the planting so far. It's looking a bit like a tropical lush jungle at the moment. That's because I have all that moss there. And I'm going to keep the moss there for now until the roots get established they grow into that shape and stabilize. And then, later on I'll be taking moss off, especially if it comes to show time. And like I said, I'll probably have that wet and dry look, one lush and one very dry looking. I will also be doing a bit of pruning of the trees, trying to get the height down a bit. They're getting a little tall. I'm going to work away at the landscape, refining all the details, trying to make it look the best I can today. I hope in the future, it starts to look better and better as it gets more refined. But I'll try and make it look as good as I can today. And I may have a little too much moss on it because I've got to hold all that soil together until the roots get established. So I'll work away. It may take me an hour, it may take me 2 hours, but then we'll come back and see how it looks. Here is a progress report. The sun is shining on the planting, so it's going to be going behind the tree soon, so I thought I'd show you it kind of in the sunlight. So still a lot of work to go, but it's getting better. I pruned the trees up just a little bit, took some of the vertical growth off them. I pruned this one up quite a bit. I took all those shoots off, except for the one side one. So I'll keep working away, refining it, trying to make it look better. I was looking at the arrangement of the trees, and I felt that the main tree was too far forward, too near the front edge of the pot. So I'm working on moving it back. So I'm digging out my soil here. I'm going to move the main tree back a bit. It just looked too close to the edge of the pot. It made me feel uncomfortable that there wasn't enough land out front. It looked like the tree was jammed right against this front face. So I'm going to move it back. I think I'll be much happier with the arrangement after that. I've moved the tree back now, so you can see I've got it as back as far as I can. It's against the rocks. I even trimmed a few roots off so I could get it closer to the rocks. And I think it looks much better. I think it's much more comfortable in the pot now. This tree, I wanted it a little behind this one, but I just can't do it. So it's kind of in line almost. But I think it looks okay. I think the two match each other quite nicely. And this isn't like a major tree. It's kind of a small accent almost. It almost looks like a branch off the main tree. So I think it'll look quite good together. Maybe just angle this a bit more here. So I'll continue working on the landscape, replanting the main tree, getting it all filled in again. I think it was a worthwhile change. It bugged me being that close to the edge of the pot. Now it looks more comfortable in this planting. So I'll keep working away. I have been playing around with the landscape for about 2 hours now, trying different variations, different amounts of moss, different sand terrains, all kinds of variations. I think I've got it the best I can for now anyway. Maybe the Mingoralia wasn't the best choice in the world, but I think it's probably the best penjing landscape the Mingoralia will ever get. I think it shows the tree off quite nicely, I think. Am I 100% satisfied with the landscape? No, I'm not. I think the Mingoralia, I had to plant it a little higher than I had intended because of the root base on it, which made me kind of have to mound my sand up in the middle, and it kind of obscured maybe some of the interesting features of the rocks. But I think in the end it looks quite nice. I think it's a successful planting, and you gain experience by doing this kind of work and planting rocks, and maybe the next time I'll be even more successful. Hopefully, maybe not. We'll see. So anyway, I will show you what the landscape looks like now. Here is the distant view of the landscape. So I put 2 blocks of wood underneath the marble pot, kind of like feet. So I'll have to make some decorative feet in the future, just to kind of elevate it like that. I think it looks nice elevated. I have it on one of my old stands that was just a coffee table that I cut the legs down, just to kind of highlight the marble pot a bit with the dark stand. So let's fly in now and have a look at the planting. view, kind of looking across the salt lake at the tree, kind of like this, reminds me of Caboo Island the most. It kind of reminiscent of the pictures with the rocky shoreline and the salt flats. I think it's interesting from, all the views when you go around the planting. I think it holds its interest quite well. So yeah, things that could be improved, well, I don't know. I think the moss being green kind of bugs me a bit. It looks kind of too lush. It doesn't give me that feeling of that dry, hot, dry landscape. It is too lush. So I think, if I were to show this, I would definitely strip the leaves off the tree and let that moss dry out so it turns yellow. And I think that would look quite a bit better. Now these rocks, at the moment, they're wet and they've got a lot of kind of algae on them. I've noticed that over time they do lighten up. I'll show you a rock on the floor down here. So this one down here, this one's been in the greenhouse and this one has been for a bit too. And they've kind of lightened up. So that might happen to my rocks also, which could change, it could change the whole look of the planting. And the tree is going to grow and change. The tree beside it is going to fill in. It'll get new foliage. So it could look quite different, by the end of summer or even in spring. I had a lot of fun putting my Caboo Island landscape together. I really enjoyed piecing it all together and trying to make it look the best it can. And I'm quite happy with the outcome. I think it looks very representative of the island. And I think it's a good showcase for my Ming Aurelia. I think it takes it from being just an ordinary kind of looking bonsai to something that makes you look at it and study it and go, wow. I think it's a beautiful framing for the tree. And I hope the tree just continues to get better in the future. So that is all for this 4-part series. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.